Mr. Grace.
To add on to MOS Low, I think we are an accountable government, and we'll be prepared to accountable to the people, and we are accountable with our results. So you're going to look at our commitment in 2030, our year-to-year carbon emissions, and hold us accountable. I think the line of questions that members have given seems to suggest that, we have something to hide and, we need to hide some incentives somewhere else. There's really no need. What we really want is to make sure that our public officers have the ability to engage companies confidently, keeping in mind their obligation to maintain commercial confidentiality, for the simple reasons that the companies may be competitors themselves. Secondly, we may have competitors outside Singapore. So like many of these discussions, like many of these plans, we want to respect each other's requirements. So we have taken the stand that, we will keep individual disclosure confidential. And ultimately, you look at our budget every year. Have we overspent? Do we have items that's not accounted for? Have we, have schemes that cannot be explained to people? I think our track record speaks for itself. And we will stand in this House again, year after year, to justify to you how we have been doing on our carbon green plan and our carbon emission.
So, Professor Jamus Lim.
Thank you, Speaker. Just two clarifications to Minister Fu. The first has to do with the notion of whether we are indeed calling for a higher rate. The median I suggested was $100 per tonne. And it is true, certainly, that in the long run, we seek for something of that nature for a good reason, as I explained, that it was the midpoint of what is scientifically credible and defensible. Now, that said, I think it's important to distinguish between the level, the appropriate level, versus the manner by which we get to that level, the glide path, if you will. The analogy is to think about how one might choose to target one's weight loss journey. First, you choose a target weight. Let's say I really wish to be 65 kilograms.
Mr. Jamus Lim, what is your clarification?
Yes. So the clarification then is whether the ministry sees or does not see the merits of separating these two decisions about the appropriate level of the carbon tax versus the glide path to get there. Now, my second clarification has to do with something that she said about how businesses cannot operate without certainty when we do not know what the carbon tax is going to be. I'm befuddled because, of course, even now, government routinely alters levers of policy, such as the interest rate. When there is uncertainty on a year-to-year basis about the level of interest rate, yet businesses continue to invest. Put it another way, let's say the ministry telegraphed that it was originally going for 25...
Again, what is the clarification?
I'm getting there, sir. So originally, the ministry telegraphed the $25 a tonne rate next year, and we entered into a recession. Would she believe that businesses would then be very upset if we said that we would scale this $25 a tonne back to something lower to eventually raise it subsequently?
I think Mr. Speaker, Professor Lim started his speech earlier saying that, we have the theory right, but we need to get the implementation right. So I like to maybe ask him for his suggestion of how the government should be positioning the carbon tax in his way. What will be your target? Is $100? If it's long run, which year? Is it 2030 still?
Just to be clear, the government has not also committed to a 50 to 80.
We have 50 to 80 is our range. So what is your range?
And that was well stated, 58 to 133 with the midpoint of being 100.
Okay, so that's your range is higher than the government, is it correct?
the lower bound is lower than the government's upper bound.
50 to 80, yours is 58 to 133.
Yes, the lower bound that I gave you is lower than the government's upper bound.
All right, okay. So can you please try to tell me, if you are the Minister of Sustainability and Environment, how would you glide to this number? Well, how would you glide? Okay, this is 2022. We are end of 2022. You're going to go out and say, company, this is the new glide path. How will you describe your glide path?
That was the content of my speech. I suggested that we could do it incrementally, the way that the ministry has suggested, but I also suggested that we could allow the specific level to adjust upward and downward according to economic conditions.
So are you then saying that we can go out to the world and say, sorry, I've made the 2030 NDC on the basis of certain economic conditions, and now that the economic conditions are bad, there's a war out there, there is high inflation and energy, my NDCs don't count because I need to glide further out?
No, but I think I was clear that the adjustments upwards and downwards are the same way that business cycles go upward and downward. So you would have it lower in a given year because of economic conditions, but when things picked up, you would raise it back so that you met the original targets.
So you are suggesting a very variable carbon tax rate ends with 58 to 133, but without knowing how it's going to get there. Not even knowing what 2024 is going to be.
I think you would set a target, but be able to adapt to economic conditions the same way the interest rates are routine.
Rate for 2024?
As I said, it's not complicated. You will set a target.
What is that rate? What is the number?
We can go with the government's proposed number, say start with $25,
Okay, so
as I said in my speech.
2025, are you going to stay with $25 as well? Or
We would have to look at economic conditions.
So I'd like to repeat.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker. I understand that when a member asks a question, the other member sits down, question is answered, vice versa. There's some decorum between both parties.
I apologize for that. I will sit down. Okay. Please. Can you please tell me, describe to me your carbon tax glide path in numbers? Because I'm a business, I need to know, I speak on behalf of the business, I need to know, can you please tell me with some certainty, what is that variable portion? Even if you say 25 for 2 years to come, 45, I'm not too sure, but what will be the variation?